Hey folks, this is Kalani. We finally have a release date for patch 9.2. The last patch of the Shadowlands expansion will go live on February 22nd for North American servers or February 23rd for the European servers. So we have less than 2 weeks left to wait. We also know when the new raid will release, and there are some huge last minute changes to patch 9.2 that you're going to want to know about. So let's break it all down, see how the release schedule is going to pan out, and talk about those big changes. Before we jump in, be sure to hit up that like button and subscribe so you never miss another video. Okay, February 22nd, that's the date that many of us were putting our money on. Let's be honest, at this point it was between February 22nd and March 1st, so there wasn't much guesswork left. February 22nd puts us at just under 2 weeks away, so we only really have one more reset in patch 9.15 before we move on to bigger and better things. We also know that the raid will open up in the second week of the patch, but this raid is going to be a bit weird because not all of the bosses will be available right away. For timeline purposes, the patch launches on February 22nd. 1 week later, on March 1st, the raid will open up on normal and heroic mode, but only the first 8 bosses will be available to kill. There are 11 bosses in the raid total, so the last 3 bosses will not be available to kill or even attempt in that first week. That makes quite a bit of sense story-wise. I don't want to spoil anything, but the 8th boss is very important, and there's a bit of story bridging the gap between the first 8 bosses and the last 3 bosses. As a fun little side note, none of the 3 last bosses have been tested on the PTR whatsoever, so no one really knows how those bosses are going to play out, which is really exciting for someone like me who goes into the new raid on the very first day. Season 3 of Shadowlands will also kick off on March 1st, which includes the Mythic Plus season and the PvP season, so you'll be able to start your rating grinds once again. 1 week after the raid opens up, on March 8th, Mythic difficulty will become available, and the last 3 bosses also become available for normal and heroic mode. The first wing of LFR will also open up at the same time, and the minimum item level to enter that is going to be set at 220. This is also typically when the item level restrictions for Mythic Plus dungeons are lifted as well. And then 2 weeks after that, on March 22nd, the second wing of LFR will open up. Another 2 weeks after that, on April 5th, the third wing of LFR will open up. And then yet another 2 weeks after that, on April 19th, the last wing will open up, which is just the Jailer. So if you're waiting on LFR wings to become available to experience the entire raid, you are going to have to wait until April 19th to see how this story truly ends with the fight against the Jailer. That's pretty much the entire release schedule of the new patch, and I have to say I am very excited for this new raid in particular. The bosses are a lot of fun, the last 3 bosses being completely unknown is very exciting, and we have tier sets to chase after this time, so even more shiny loot awaits. There have also been some last minute changes to 9.2 that will be very important for a lot of players. The way in which players can acquire reputation for the new factions in Zereth Mortis was recently changed, putting a very large focus onto farming rare monsters every day, while significantly reducing rep gains from easier activities like world quests. This created a scenario where the players who killed every single rare every single day could get very far ahead of the players who couldn't do that, so if you wanted to keep up to date, you would have to spend a very long time farming rares each and every day until you reached your reputation goals. Blizzard has done a bit of a 180 on those changes. Not entirely, but they have made it much better with this recent announcement. In a blue post, they said, people shouldn't feel like they need to play every day, and people shouldn't feel like when they play, the incentives don't steer people towards the fun. So yeah, we hear the community concerns with overweighting rares. When rares constitute the lion's share of the total rep that you can get in a day, that can create a sense of obligation to pursue them all. Since there are so many, this turns the daily acquisition of rep into a time-consuming process, rather than something you can target and complete, or mostly complete, in a reasonable play session. We want rares to feel like a bonus rather than an obligation, so the reputation earned from rares is being decreased from 15 or 30 rep each to 10 or 15 rep each. Along with that change, because we don't want to reduce the total incoming rep, we're increasing the reputation of other sources to compensate. World quests will award 125 instead of 100, Antros, the world boss, will reward 500 instead of 250, and the twice weekly quest, Patterns Within Patterns, will award 500 instead of 250. The net effect of this is that this will be a small increase in the total potential rep gain each day, and rares will take up a much lower proportion of those gains. This will allow players to feel like they can be done for the day earlier without significant long-term cost, while still allowing those players who want to push harder some incentive to do so. Players who feel the need to reach Revered by week 5 and get the legendary memory as soon as Chapter 7 ends should now be able to rest assured. Even without killing a single rare, it should be comfortably achievable to reach that level in that time frame. Overall, these changes will move a large portion of rep gains away from daily busy work and into larger chunks of weekly, bi-weekly, and easier daily activities. So if you just do the world quests each day, the bi-weekly big reward quests twice per week, and then kill the world boss each week, you will be in a much better position than before these changes. Rares being worth less rep overall means that they still provide a benefit, and the players who can spend all day camping them will still be ahead slightly, but it's going to be a much smaller gap. Probably small enough for me to say you don't really have to worry too much about it. I would still encourage you to kill any rares you come across during your time in the new zone, but you won't have to go out of your way to kill each and every one every single day just to keep up. So big changes to rep farming right before the patch launches. There may also be another interesting change to talk about. This one hasn't been confirmed by Blizzard from what I've seen, but it is a very interesting change nonetheless, and it's another huge last-minute change to the patch by the looks of things. The Cipher of the First One system unlocks a bunch of little things relating to the Zereth Mortis zone, like new quest hubs, new daily quests, new NPCs to interact with, new areas to explore, new powers to unleash. It's all self-contained within the Zereth Mortis zone, so you don't get any real benefit outside of the zone, but it's still an interesting system, and it's going to be great for casual players who are going to be spending a lot of time in the zone. The only major drawback with the system was the massive time gating involved, but it looks like a lot of the time gates have been lessened or entirely removed. My hunter has a good chunk of this system unlocked at this point, but I don't have everything. A lot of these leftover points usually had lengthy research times, sometimes up to a week. There's only one point here that I have left to research that has any real lengthy timer, and that's set at 1 day 18 hours. Everything else in here has a 5-second research time, which is, for all practical purposes, not really a timer at all. But if we pop on over to my Warlock, that's where this gets real interesting. The timers for every unlock seem to have been removed. 1 second research times for the top points, with 1 second or 5-second timers for everything else. That means that almost every timer is removed for my Warlock, except the one that I haven't researched already on my Hunter. So that tells me right away that these 1 second research timers are probably based on account progress. So while that does mean that all of your alts have their time gating removed, providing you have researched these points on at least one other character, that doesn't mean all of the timers have been removed entirely. To get a clearer picture of what this is going to look like for your very first character going through the Cipher of the First Ones for the first time, I had Nadara pop onto the PTR with her priest. The only thing Nadara has done on the PTR is unlock the Cipher with 1 or 2 extra points, so nothing you see here has been influenced by a different character on this account. The top talents or traits that unlock the columns do have a 3-day 18-hour research timer, so it looks like we'll still have a lengthy wait for the initial unlocks in this system, but I'm pretty sure that's still lower than what it was earlier on the PTR cycle. But here's where things get fun. Only the very top points in each column have a lengthy research timer. These are now 5-day 18-hour timers, which is actually a lot longer than before in some cases, but everything else is 5 seconds. Absolutely everything across the board in every column is 5 seconds, apart from those few with lengthy time gates. So for the most part, you won't have to wait to get what you want to research. It's only going to be the big feature items, which I guess makes a little bit of sense. That's way better than time gating every talent or trait, especially when the rewards are incredibly minor. So to piece this all together, the initial research times to unlock a column are still a bit long, but they're shorter than they were previously. The initial research times for large traits in a column are a bit longer, up to nearly 6 days, but that seems to be limited to just 1 trait per research column. Then everything else, apart from those, are going to be 5 seconds, which means they basically don't have a time gate at all. And then in addition to that, when you come to the system on your alts, nothing will have a research time at all. I mean, unless you count 1 second and 5 seconds as a research time. I think these are great changes in general. The Cipher system is already gated by how quickly you can obtain the Cipher currency, so removing most of the research times is great in my opinion. The alt catch-up added on top is also going to be huge, because who wants to wait for a research time that they've already done multiple times already, especially when you're playing an alt later on in the patch. I really feel like the dev team is trying to move towards more account-wide unlocks, or at the very least making sure alt playthroughs are significantly streamlined when you've already completed that content on your main. I hope they keep pushing those boundaries of account-wide unlocks, but for now it looks like the Cipher of the First One system is going to be less time-gated and more fun to interact with. It's also worth noting that the PTR build is now marked as a release candidate, which typically means that things won't really change that much from now until the release of the patch. We might still see hotfixes, but any large sweeping changes are very unlikely, which probably includes the general mechanics of systems and features. So what we have now in the PTR is probably what we're going to get. But that's it for this video. How do you feel about the February 22nd release date? How far off were your initial patch release date guesses? And what do you think of the Zereth Mortis rep game changes and the potential for the Cypher Timegating to be more or less removed? Leave all your thoughts in the comment section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon and to everyone who's subscribed on Twitch. You can see their names floating by on screen. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss another video. Thanks for watching, folks. Good luck and have fun, and as always, I'll see you next time.